Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode. Today we are going to be covering the following topics. All the timestamps are in the description below. And I hope you enjoy today's episode. So let's get started on these topics. Here is a scenario that a lot of people come across, and this is how you solve it in PowerShell. Let's say you have a log entry in this format and you want to extract just the error number. How would you do that? In PowerShell, you can use the RegEx switch parameter here with the switch statement to extract just the error number. So you can see here that I am doing a RegEx expression here. So this is the first statement that would basically look for this group. So this is known as a capturing group. So this regex happen here, the D here with the backslash is basically to escape the character D, and D here is to capture any digits. The plus symbol here just means that you want to capture all the digits up to this colon. So you can see here, notice the parentheses here. This is what will get stored within this magic automatic variable. So PowerShell creates this variable for you, and any content within these parentheses is automatically transferred into that variable. And this variable is an array. So you are just accessing the first element here. And then once that's available, you're just storing it in this variable called $error code. And then we just basically outputting. Notice I'm using the switch statement here. So if the pattern matches, basically we get a match here, then we want it to do this. Otherwise, default output, which is error code 0, and then we just simply print the result. So if I run this again, so you can see here that we got the output of 503, which is the error code here plus our custom message here. So just remember to use regex, and then to extract a number, you just use backslash here is just to escape the character D, plus is to capture the group of characters. So here we're just capturing these digits, and then up to the colon here, and this is the pattern. So we're basically looking for a pattern that says error plus a number plus a colon, but we only want to capture the stuff in the parentheses in what is known as capturing groups here. So this capturing group will store in this variable, and then you can just store that in a variable, and then there you go, you can output. So this is really easy to do in PowerShell, and I would definitely encourage to experiment with the regex parameter along with the switch statement here. Did you know in PowerShell you can use regex expressions in the if statement? So here what we're trying to do is we want to print this name Sarah. So basically extract the word Sarah. We have this variable that holds the string, and you can use the match parameter here, and then we're supplying it the criteria. So the criteria is we want the name to be extracted. So name is, and then Sarah. So here in these parentheses, we are defining a capturing group. So what this will do is escape the character W, because we don't want to treat it as a literal W. It needs a special meaning, and that meaning is to capture the next word after name is. So this will be a group. This will then get stored in this variable called matches. Matches is generated by PowerShell internally and is made available, so you don't have to actually create this variable. It's automatically created for you. And then in here you specify the index number where the first group value will be stored, which will be this word here. So it will go through here, name is, and then pick up the next word. That word will get stored here, and we will just simply write the output to the screen. So if I run this, so highlight the code and then run selection, and as you can see here, it's found the name Sarah. So what if you had another word after it? So you had Sarah Ali. If you had that, then you can do \w and plus, and what that will do is print both names out. So if I do this and do run selection again, you can see it's printed out both names. If I take the second W out, you can see that we've left the surname in here. So if I run this again, you can see it just prints out Sarah. But if you add another W in here like this, then you can actually get both names out like this here. And just to prove that this still works, you can just change the name to Sam, for example, and then if I highlight that again and run selection, and you can see it's printed that out, and I can take out this W here, and notice it will just print Sam here. So this match parameter is basically very important to understand, because it allows regular expressions within if statements in PowerShell. So you can do stuff like this to work with capturing groups, and these capturing groups are stored in this variable, and then you can output them using the index number. So I hope you found this very useful. Although PowerShell is not a programming language as such, it's a scripting language, it does have the try and catch error concept, but you need to understand a few things, especially around error action preference. So let's explain this. So here, as you can see, within the try block, I am trying to get an item, which is a non-existing file. And here I've got the catch block to capture the error. The $_ is the automatic variable that PowerShell creates for you, which contains the error object. But if I were to run this code, the error handling catch block will not work. So if I run this here and do run selection, and then you can see my error handler didn't work. It didn't print out this message. Instead, we got a standard message. The reason is to do with error actions. In PowerShell, you can decide what should happen when an error happens. The normal preference of PowerShell is to continue. So basically, it will execute this line, so it will never actually execute the catch block. So you have something called error action preference, which has options such as continue. It has options such as stop. So this will stop the execution and make it trigger the catch block. Or you could silently continue, which is suppress the error message. Inquire, basically ask the user what to do, and ignore, completely ignore the error. No error messages are printed. We want it to actually stop execution. So what you can do is you have two options of doing it. One, which is you can set it globally for all your code here using the $ error action preference, or you can set it next to the line where you want the error to be captured. So we could do it here. If I highlight this and run selection, and as you can see, we've got our error message printed. But if I take that off again and run this again, and you can see we are back to our standard PowerShell error. But you can actually change this global variable error action preference, which is provided by PowerShell. And now if I run this, notice if this line is commented out, I run selection again, you can see our error message is printed. So this is how you capture errors in try catch. Just remember, by default, most errors in PowerShell have the continue option. So here you can see the continue option. So here continue option is the default. It will display the error message and continue executing the script, or you can get it to stop, which means your catch close here would be triggered. So yes, PowerShell does have the modern try catch, but you need to be aware that you need to use error action preference or error action parameter here to decide what should happen if an error occurs. PowerShell has various different options for dealing with errors in your code when they happen, and you can decide what to do for each one. So let's run through them and see what they do. So here you can see I've got a variable called error action preference. This error action preference variable is a global variable available in PowerShell, so you don't have to create it, you just give it a value. The default option for this is continue, but you can set other options such as silently continue, which means no error is shown. So if I highlight this line, and before I run it, there is something called $error, which again is a global variable that basically shows the last error at index 0. So the latest error is always shown at index 0. If I run this, and you can see at the minute, it's just length, there are no errors. So if I run this code here and do run selection, and you can see here, this file does not exist, no error is shown. So if I were to run this now, you can see that this is the error that we got. Cannot find path because it does not exist. And you can get more information because this is an error object that's stored here at index 0. You can get category info and category. So if I run this, so you can see the error category this time is object not found. Now, next one is inquire. So if I run this here, I'll clear the screen by going here and clear terminal. If I run this here, you can see with this time we've got a prompt to say cannot find path, it doesn't exist. What do you want to do? So it's asking the user, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue? Yes to all, hold command, suspend. And in this instance, if we say yes, continue, and you can see that we got the output of the error. But we could have a line after this if I copy that line. So here, if I run this again, you can see that it's asking, do you want to continue? So if I say yes, I do, then you see the no error shown here message, but you also see the error message here. But if I hold it, if I go and run selection again, if I say hold, so this will simply stop the execution and this line hasn't been printed. And then if we look at this one, which is the ignore error message. So if I run this here, you can see the error message is printed, but it's ignored completely. But notice that ignore is not supported for action preference variable. So this one actually gets replaced by the continue. So right at the top, I have the continue one. So if I run this here, play the terminal, you can see that this code runs because it's continue, error is displayed, and then still running is run after that. Whereas you saw with the silently continue that it didn't actually print the error message, it just continued writing to the host here and executing the next line. So these are the different ways you can handle errors. And remember, the $error is an object, so you can print information from it. If I run this again, you can see that object not found is the category of the error that last happened. You can access error prior to that at index 1, and that again was the same error. So the latest one is always at position 0, and you can print the whole error message like this. And then error action preference is where you can set different options for how to deal with the error. Continue, silently continue, inquire, or ignore. Ignore doesn't actually work for this. It works as a parameter, so it just replaces it with the continue option. Do you know what the $? Variable means in PowerShell? So the $sign is to indicate that it's a variable. The question mark, it's a variable name itself. That basically means if the last command executed has been successfully executed or not. So here, this is the command, this file doesn't exist, and we are providing a parameter called error action. Basically, it means when an error happens, continue silently, don't display the error. And instead, we've got our direct error handling here, which is we're using the variable to check if it's true, which means it's been successfully executed previous command, or false if the previous command executed failed. So if I highlight this and run this code, and as you can see, we've got the output command failed. So you can use the $question mark. Again, question mark is the variable name. $sign is to just indicate it's a variable, and you can use it if you don't want to use try and catch error handling. So this might be useful in certain situations. I would recommend against using this technique, but you should know it is available because in some situations you may need the $question mark variable, which is created created by PowerShell to manually check errors in your code. In PowerShell, if you need to check if an external command such as ping executed successfully, then you can use this variable called $last exit code. So what this variable will do is it will have the value of 0 if it's successfully executed, or won't be not equal to 0. It will have another value, which means that it failed. So here, if I highlight this and run this code, and as you can see, this is a valid IP address, and we did get the command back, but this IP address is invalid. So if I highlight this and run selection over here, and you can see that the ping failed message is printed because that's what we wrote out to the screen. And you can see the error message from the ping itself to say it can find this host. So use $last exit code, which is a variable automatically created by PowerShell that basically lets you check if any external commands such as ping have executed successfully. If they have executed successfully, you will get an output of 0. Otherwise, you will get another value, which means an error did happen and you need to do something about it in your if clause here. So again, this is one of the methods of directly handling errors in PowerShell, and this is for external commands. Do you know the difference between an array and a hash table? So in PowerShell, an array is like this. You use the @ symbol and then open parentheses and define your fruits in this example. So we've got apple, banana, and cherry. But you can also have array with mixed data type. So here we have a number, then we have a string, then we have a boolean. You can then print the array with the index number like this. So if I just run this code here, then as you can see, the first fruit printed is apple because that's in position 0. If I print the mixed one as a whole, you can see all of them are printed. So what's the difference between array and hash table? So hash table in other languages such as Python and C# is known as a dictionary. You could interchange the words because they mean the same thing. What actually defines the hash table or a dictionary? Well, it basically means it's a key value pair. And what we mean by that is, just think of like your dictionary. You look up a word and that word has a definition. So here, for example, we're looking up name. That's the key. That's the word. What's the definition of that word? It's the name of the person, Sarah in this instance. Then you have age. What age? Then that means 30. City, London. So that's what a hash table or dictionary basically means. Nothing more complex than this. So as you can see, the difference between array is array doesn't have the key part. So it doesn't have like a lookup value where you can't say find me name over fruit as such. These are just list of fruits. Okay, so that's how I would understand it. These are list of fruits. So here it's much more structured data type. Some might even say it looks like a class. So in this instance, it's not a class. You can refer to it officially as a dictionary or a hash table. So here you've got the name, age, city, and then you can access those like this. So notice with the fruits, you have to use the index number. Here, because it's a dictionary, you can actually just use the variable name, and then in the square brackets, notice the square brackets there, we put name because that's what we're looking up. So if I do this, and if I just run this bit here, then you can see it's printed name. You might be wondering how come I only selected this line and ran, because I ran this earlier and this was already in memory. So when you do run selection, you go to memory, and then you can access any of the properties like this. So this is how PowerShell works. And then here you can actually change the data type. So here we change the age from 30 number to 30 words here. So you can do that, and that's, you might say, the mixed data type there. And then you can print that age and you will see that we get the output 30. So here, I hope this is made clear. What is the difference between an array and hash table, also known as a dictionary? Notice how they have slightly different syntax. They both start off with the @ symbol here and here, but then arrays use parentheses in PowerShell, and dictionaries or hash tables use the curly brackets here. And then you can access the properties for arrays using the index number, but for hash tables, you can access it with the actual key value here, which is name, and then its value is here, Sarah. You can loop through your keys like this if you wanted to. So here we go for each loop, and then if I run this, and as you can see, it's printed out name, age, city, because it's going through the key, and that the key is using person, which is a variable name. And notice that every time it's using a variable here, which is key, which is basically all the keys, which is name, age, and city. So those are then the key values, and those are printed out here. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video on explaining the difference between array and hash tables. The question that I often get asked is, how do you do nested hash tables? As we know, hash tables are basically dictionaries, and what we mean by dictionary is you can access objects properties like you do with a class. So for example, here I've got a variable called student. This is the key, what you might say is the property, and this is the value that it holds. So here we've got a student, and that student has a property where key called name, and then marks, and within marks we have sub-dictionary here, or a hash table. So here they've got score of math and English. So as you can see, then you can access the properties like this, student.marks.math. So this data structure, which is officially known as a hash table or dictionary in other languages, allows you to access different keys or properties using the dot notation here. So this is how you do it in PowerShell. So if I were to highlight this and run selection, and you can see now this code is in memory, and now if I run this here, and you can see we've got the score output here, which is 95 for maths. So this is how you do nested hash tables in PowerShell.